The small town of Willow Creek was beautiful, with its tree-lined streets, a river that sparkled in the sunlight, and fields that stretched for miles. But underneath its charm lay a deep, bitter divide that had lasted for generations. The Monroe family and the Harrington family had been at odds for as long as anyone could remember. No one quite knew how the feud started. Some said it was a dispute over land. Others whispered about a broken engagement from decades ago. Whatever the cause, the result was clear. The two families couldn't stand each other. Every corner of town bore the marks of their rivalry. If the Monroes opened a bakery, the Harringtons would open one right down the street. If a Harrington joined the school board, a Monroe would run for the same seat. It was a quiet but constant battle that everyone in Willow Creek had learned to live with. Amelia Monroe was 26 years old, with a kind smile and a quiet determination. She had grown up hearing stories of the awful Harringtons and was taught to keep her distance. But Amelia had always been different. She didn't see the point of the feud and often wondered what life in Willow Creek could be like without it. On the other side of town, Jacob Harrington, a 28-year-old with a head full of big ideas and a heart for his community, felt the same way. While his family spent dinners talking about the conniving Monroes, Jacob couldn't bring himself to hate people he barely knew. Their paths crossed unexpectedly one autumn afternoon at the town library. Amelia was organizing books for a charity drive, while Jacob was sketching designs for a project in a quiet corner. They both reached for the same book on community building and froze when they saw each other. "You're a Harrington," Amelia said cautiously, clutching the book. "And you're a Monroe," Jacob replied, raising an eyebrow. They stared at each other for a moment before Jacob chuckled softly. "I guess we're not supposed to talk, huh?" Amelia hesitated, then smiled. "Probably not, but here we are." That small interaction turned into a quiet friendship. Over the next few weeks, they began meeting in secret, drawn together by their shared frustration with the feud and a mutual love for Willow Creek. They talked about their families, their dreams, and the changes they wanted to see in the town. It was during one of these conversations that Jacob shared his idea for a community center, a place where people from all over Willow Creek could gather, learn, and connect. Amelia's eyes lit up. "That's exactly what this town needs," she said. "Let's do it." The decision to work together wasn't easy. They knew their families would be furious if they found out, but they were determined. Over the following months, Amelia and Jacob poured their energy into the project. They found an old, abandoned building near the town square and spent late nights cleaning it out and painting the walls. They reached out to local businesses for donations and quietly recruited volunteers who didn't care about last names. The closer they got to opening day, the harder it became to keep their work a secret. Rumors began to spread about the activity at the old building. One evening, Amelia's mother confronted her. "Amelia, are you working with him, a Harrington?" Mrs. Monroe's voice was sharp with disbelief. Amelia took a deep breath. "Yes, I am," she said, her voice steady. "Because this feud is ridiculous, Mom. It's tearing the town apart. We're building something to bring people together. Isn't that what you've always wanted for Willow Creek?" Meanwhile, Jacob faced his own storm at home. His father slammed a newspaper onto the kitchen table, an article about the soon-to-open community center on the front page. "Tell me this isn't your doing," Mr. Harrington demanded. Jacob stood tall. "It is, and I'm proud of it. This town deserves better than constant fighting." The families were furious, but there was no stopping the momentum. On the day of the grand opening, people from all over Willow Creek gathered outside the building, curious and excited. Amelia and Jacob stood side by side at the entrance, their nerves hidden behind hopeful smiles. As they cut the ribbon, applause erupted. Inside, The community centre was filled with classrooms, a small library, and a wide, open space for events. There was a wall dedicated to local history, with photos and stories from families across the town, including the Monroes and Harringtons. At first, the tension was thick. Monroes stuck to one side of the room, and Harringtons stuck to the other. But as the weeks went on, something remarkable began to happen. Children from both families played together in the activity rooms. Adults attended workshops and book clubs side by side. Slowly, walls of resentment started to crumble. One afternoon, Mrs. Monroe and Mr. Harrington found themselves sitting at the same table during a community meeting. They exchanged awkward glances before Mrs. Monroe broke the silence. "It's a nice place they've built, isn't it?" Mr. Harrington nodded. "Yes, it really is." Amelia and Jacob watched from across the room, their hearts swelling with pride. The feud wasn't gone entirely, but for the first time in generations, it felt like Willow Creek had a chance at healing. Together, they had proved that even the deepest divides could be bridged with determination, kindness, and a little bit of courage.